大家晚上好，欢迎大家来到国际培训大咖五十谈，我是顾立民。上一期我们非常荣幸的邀请到了来自英国的唐纳德·克拉克 （Donald Clark） 来给我们讲述了用25分钟的时间讲述了2500年学习发展的历史。他确实在这方面研究非常之多，而且呢，对于学习科学学习 learning science 研究是非常之深厚的，而且呢，有了很多的建树，并且在实践当中进行了很多年的实践，并且呢，在访谈当中呢，我们也请他呢，为我们对培训当中的一些误区、一些个 myth 或者是一些个迷信的东西，给我们进行了解释。就像几周以前 Dr. Clark Quinn 克拉克·奎恩博士那样因为在学习发展界确实有很多非常启迪我们心智的，但是呢，被实验证明呢是与我们的学习科学学习发展的科学呢是不相符的一些个做法那么需要呢我们逐渐的去认识、去认知，并且呢进行不断的改进。感谢克拉克Donald Clark 这些年来为我们做出的贡献，特别是他对学习科学方面的研究，希望我们以后能够向他学习更多。25分钟时间把2500年的学习历史讲清楚，确实是不是一件容易的事情。这里面的信息量密度是相当之大的。好，今天晚上我们请到另外一位嘉宾，也是来自英国的一位非常知名的实践者他的名字叫 David James 大卫詹姆斯。他过去呢曾经在迪士尼的欧洲、中东和非洲大区，就是 EMEA 大区呢担任首席人才官，负责人才发展以及组织发展等方面的工作，经验呢非常的丰富。那么他现在呢也建立了自己的公司，他最为擅长的领域呢是 e-learning 电子化学习。他有好几家公司，他最为知名的一家公司呢，重点的呢发展的是 the loop字母 L 然后3个 O loop。那么 loop 呢 LOOP 呢是循环的意思是大家知道这个英文，那么它呢中间加了一个 O， 所以呢作为它公司的 logo， 那么也非常的有意思。那么我们今天晚上呢将向他请教很多在电子化学习方面的一些个做法，特别是如何通过电子化学习有效的培养人才，特别是如何在电子化教学当中使我们的学员更加的专注，注意力更加集中，以及电子化学习的未来等等。好，闲话少叙，下面我们就隆重请出 David James。 Hi David, how are you?
Hello, George. I'm very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation to be on the Training Master Series.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. And thank you for being here during this pandemic. I know you're a very busy guy, and you've made a lot of achievement. And but as usual, will you please first introduce yourself a little bit? Please tell us where you grew up, where you went to college, what you studied, and where you work and live now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a UK resident. I've always lived in and around the London area. I think most interestingly and perhaps most relevantly, I joined the learning and development profession in the late 1990s when we were training and development. And I joined as a training officer for a credit card company. I chose a path later in life, so I got a degree at Kingston University in HR management because I'd chosen the path of learning and training, and I spent 15 years of my life in company roles in learning and development functions, starting at Lloyd's TSB, which is high street banking. Went on to NatWest, which again is high street banking. I spent a year at an arm of Lehman Brothers before I joined Disney in 2006, where I was fortunate enough to spend 8 years. In that time, I ran the UK Learning and Development Department for its UK population, and then spent some time as Director of Learning, Talent and Organizational Development for Europe, Middle East and Africa. which as we spoke before, George, had me see a little bit of the world. I visited your neck of the woods in Shanghai.
Yep.
Spent some time in Buenos Aires, as well as plenty of time in the US as well, on the west coast of America. So yeah, really interesting time. I spent a lot, I suppose, yeah, since then, 2014. I've been on the other side, on the vendor side, looking to solve some of the problems that I faced in my 15 years in house. The main one being, how do you get people to use online learning when they'd rather not?
Right, right. Absolutely. That's a universal challenge, and that is universal everywhere. It's here, it happens
Mm.
here in China, here it happens in Europe, and happens everywhere. So you're not alone.
No, that's right.
So thank you so much. So you've been working, you've been in charge of Disney Europe's learning
Mhm.
development and OD for 8 years, 8+ years, right?
Yeah, well, I was at Disney for 8 years, and for 3 of those years, I was looking after learning talent and OD for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Yeah, so that's kind of the
Was that
culmination of my work there.
Yeah? Was that your last employment?
You don't count my current role as employment. You- um, it was my last in company role. Yes, that was the last time I
Right,
was
right.
in a corporate organization. Yes.
Working for somebody else and self-employed, they're quite different.
Yeah, they
So you're
really are. Yeah.
issuing salaries and all the incentives to yourself. So sometimes, we're all startups, and we're in charge of everything. So, but your company is so cool. I mean, I
Mm,
really like it. The first time I saw it, it's just great. I mean, carved into my brain. It's called Loop,
that's right. Yeah.
Loop, and that
Yeah.
logo is so cool. I'm gonna project the logo on the screen to let our audience see it. So why Loop? I mean, this is such a cool name. What does it mean? Because the word loop is so. I mean, it invokes so many stories, like the movie Loop, or called
Mm,
the Hurok. It's a 2016 movie, and it's a sci-fi movie, and also
yeah.
Will Smith movie. He went back because it's so good. He's a killer, and
Mm,
then that's also a sci-fi movie. He's so good, so nobody can defeat him. So his adversary send him back to. I mean, send the younger him to come over to today to kill him. So
right.
the same person. So it's a loop, it's a circle in Chinese
Mm,
mythology. It's also called. So it's very, very intrinsic, or it's very
mm.
inspirational. Why loop?
Yeah, so it's continuous improvement. That's the idea that when we consider so much of learning and development is a one and done experience.
Hmm.
It was the case when I was in house, and it seems to be very much the case in many others, that we'll have people experience an immersive. Have an immersive learning experience, or
Right.
they will complete some e-learning, and then we think that that's job done.
Hmm.
Whereas in real life, that just isn't the case, and that
Right.
nobody's learning experience, were we to take learning and development out of the equation, then
Hmm.
people would learn how to be successful within the context of their organization and their roles by trial and error, and it will be a continuous process. And there's no but there's a long journey towards mastery. So we acknowledge that with Loop, that as far as learning and development is concerned, if we consider it a continuous journey for those that we seek to influence, then
Hmm.
we don't get drawn into the mythology around one and done, or I'd even throw into the mix some blended learning, that the fact that there might be an immersive experience plus some e-learning plus a personality test, that's
Hmm.
still pretty much one and done, even though there might be that experience might be drawn out. So we acknowledge that it's a continuous process. We have an approach that respects that, and that's very much our philosophy, as well as a cool name.
Hmm. Hmm. So the loop is not only like horizontal; it's also vertical. It's kind of a
Mm.
reiteration, a spinning, going up, and then reiterate itself, and then replace, and going through all the transformations from one stage to the next.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a good reminder, as I mentioned there, we've got to acknowledge that that's how our end users experience it. But we, as learning and development, sometimes have got to acknowledge that that's
Mhm.
the world that we actually operate in. And so we need a constant reminder, and hopefully Loop as a brand can be that
Right.
constant reminder that things are iterative, and that continuous development requires continuous solutions from our side.
I really like the. So does Loop only offer e-learning? You mentioned some blended learning, and is this, but this major service. Can you tell us its major services? I think it's all major, mainly e-learning. Is that right?
Well, we'd like rather call it a suite of digital
Hmm.
solutions. I think e-learning as a term. I can't remember who actually said it. It's we've ruined that term because of the click next experience that people gain.
Right.
That we to continue down the route of pushing e-learning, our end users. I don't know about you, George. Have you ever asked real people whether they like e-learning, whether they
Ah,
think it's valuable?
well, I can tell you this. I was once asked by one learning master who is also on this series
Mm.
earlier on, and that was 5 years ago. He said, we do a lot of we have done a lot of e-learning. George, what is your last time you seriously learned something through
Yeah.
e-learning? And then I was there, like we were having breakfast. I was like,
Mm.
that, see, he gave me that look. He said, yes. I said, yeah, that's for sure. So it really needs a lot of work to really woven into our daily jobs.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when was the last time you went to Google or a search engine and typed in, "Give me some e-learning"? I mean, no one does. No one does at all. E-learning is an approach and a solution in inverted commas that learning and development push
Mhm.
to what you just said before. That learning and development don't use e-learning themselves, but we push this to people as the way that we would like them to learn, and it's actively resisted. Every learning and development professional around the world struggles to get sustained engagement in their e-learning,
Mhm.
because I mean there are several reasons. I think a lot of the time it's not fit for purpose. It seems to be the solution, again in inverted commas, looking for a problem.
Mhm.
I think it's largely remiss of any context. So many people in organizations, the trouble that they have is how to get the right stuff done in the right way in their organization. And the suites of e-learning that's provided doesn't provide them with that information. So
Mhm.
we then look and think, well, how do we get people to the e-learning? Because surely we have so much of it, then some of it
Right.
must be valuable. So what we're doing is we're asking very busy employees to sift for gold through a lot of muck, like, because
Mhm.
we believe that there must be some value. But the people on the other end, they don't want to go mining for value, because
Right.
Google can predictably and reliably, I mean, any search engine around the world can predictably and reliably find them useful information at their fingertips. And if it's generic e-learning as well, then I'm afraid the search engine is going to provide them with more valuable stuff. Um,
Right.
I mean, when you take a look at the bribery involved in trying to get people to use it, whether it's to gamify, whether it's to animate, whether we're creating edutainment, what a terrible word, combining entertainment and education, whether we're creating leaderboards, the only thing we're not ready to admit is
Mhm.
e-learning we're providing isn't fit for purpose, and our consumers and their reluctance to get involved are giving us a very clear message that they
Mhm.
don't see the value, or they don't recognize enough value to maintain their engagement within it. And I think that it's about time we listen to that. And there's
Mhm.
plenty wrong with e-learning that we can pick apart. I'd say
Mhm.
the biggest one of all of them, George, is it's based on the premise that we need you to know this. Whereas we are used to, in our digital worlds, finding what we need when we need it, not
Right.
what you want me to know. That's the
Mhm.
hardest possible way of trying to influence behavior, trying to get people to do the thing you want them to do, to read that and equate that to performance and results. It's just not going to cut it. And I think 30 years in, we have to
Mhm.
admit this isn't
Mhm.
working, and we have to
Mhm.
do something different.
Mhm. 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 Well, there are two ways of. First of all, I want to thank you for saying that it's time. It
Mm.
is time for us to listen them and to listen in. Their real requests. On this series, I interviewed many e-learning masters. For instance, we have the one that created the word, co-created, one of the co-creators of the term e-learning on, and also so many. There are at least three e-learning masters on the show previously. But what I want to say is they build a very good foundations more than 20 years or 30 years ago. And with the technology and development advancement until today, there is a strong need to put really learner centric instead of
Rather than topic
organizational
centric.
centric or the instructor centric. So there needs to be a paradigm shift, and that paradigm shift, somebody talk about that in the past, but it seems to never realized, because as you just said, I or as an organization, I have this training foundation, or the training system or framework, the curricula I need you to learn. So, but what you said is more kind of a learner centric, what they need during their work. What I want to say is our intention, it is time, I do agree that it is time to revolutionize, or to a new, to a new stage, for e-learning. But there are two schools of thoughts here. It's the two needs. One is organization needs, one is individual needs. So which one do you think should come first?
Right. So I think that that you can marry the two, and it comes down to context and timeliness. So too many times an organization will spend a lot of money on a platform and generic content, right? So the platform, first of all, nobody in any organization wants another platform. Straight off the bat, they don't want another platform. Number two, they don't need it filled full of generic content. So we've got that bit completely wrong. So what we need to do is to recognize what it is that people are expected and rewarded to do. Now that's the organization talking. So we're not talking about how we isolate and categorize particular skill sets or knowledge, because what we're doing then is by extracting that and then applying that within e-learning, we're asking the employees to do too much hard work to find any value. It goes back to mining it. So what if we started with understanding what they're expected to do, but what they're not able to do easily, in service of how to do the right stuff and get the right results? Now, it requires a very different approach. Learning and development is very much used to top-down system implementation, where one system and one suite of content will be the answer. But the only problem with that is, if that's the answer, what's the question? That it all comes down to how, like, the only question that solves is, how do we get one system filled with content to people? Because you completely ignore the needs of all individuals. So how about we think about it a different way, and we think, what is a critical point of failure within our organization that needs immediately to be addressed, and who specifically is accountable and responsible for the performance and results, and work with them. The only way to do it is by understanding people, tasks, expectations, and the reward levers. And then what we can do is we can use our technology as tools. We can use the right digital technology as the tools to address specific problems. At the moment, we buy solutions and we look for problems. It doesn't work. It is so backwards that it's embarrassing. And I think that there is a need for learning and development to urgently upskill on what digital actually means. The approaches and skill sets that have serviced many other functions outside of learning and development, and then hold ourselves accountable to actual meaningful results rather than vanity metrics such as clicks, hits, and bums on seats.
Right. What do we call them? The old way call them the page turners, right? Page turners, or giggle, the garbage in, garbage out mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Just doesn't matter. Yeah. None of it matters.
Right. They just click through. And so you just said, absolutely. I absolutely agree. So your answer to my question is, really, we need to align or combine the individual needs with organizational needs, because they're not in conflict anyway, right?
They're not in conflict, but and the only thing missing a lot of the time, well, the two things that are missing are
Mhm.
actual meaningful context. So what it
Right.
is that people are trying to do and what they're not able to do in context. And the
Mhm.
second one, which is absolutely critical, is timeliness. So it's being there at the moment of need to influence the moment of apply, the
Mhm.
absolute sweet spot of what we are trying to achieve. But too
Right.
often we give people everything. There must be something that can help you whenever you need it. Brilliant. You've given me the universe. Thank you.
Right.
And you've
Right.
walked away thinking your job is done. And I look away and think, you can keep your universe. I think I'll just go and search. Do you know what I mean? You can't legitimately say that we are profession if you all you do is dump everything on people and say
Right.
that there must be something, and you'll get a
Right.
badge if you find it. What am
Right.
I? A Boy Scout?
I really like the word dumping because it's like, it's like KFC is promoting with some of the, huge double-sided burgers. Like that's huge, and then you're dumping so many calories into somebody's body. It's only 1.99. You can get a huge double decker or triple decker, or something like that. I mean, I really like that metaphor. It is information dumping. Sometimes
Yeah.
some of the e-learning system is the LMSs, and we always talk about content is king is almost become a slogan, but
Mm,
it's a beautiful wish, but it has to be backed up by very very robust systems. And talking
yeah.
about systems, and what are the unique in your next generation of LMS? Because I see that you also said refusing to include kitchen sink since
Yeah.
2014. I really like that. So you don't have the kitchen sink. So
Mm,
so so that means during the past years, and we have seen so many kitchen sinks in our LMSs.
mm. So yeah, so what it's all about is sticking to the basics of good digital practice. So
Right.
um, we give the users the ability to be data driven. We have a dashboard that says what is it you're trying to address. So and then we encourage them to integrate this with their business metrics, their business information, to prove
Mhm.
it. What are you trying to affect? So with induction, you are once you get below the myth that it's all about consistency and engagement, which is not true. It's a way of avoiding the actual problem. What you're trying to do with induction is keep good people, make sure they're as ready as possible, prepare them not to injure themselves.
Mhm.
You're trying to make sure they're ready to perform. You've got some hard measures, some real important reasons why you would do that. So we encourage people right at the outset to understand what it is you're doing this thing for. Again,
Mhm.
something that's largely missing from learning and development, because we can convince ourselves to do anything, and then we've got a track record of convincing stakeholders to batter them with logic that, whether it's anything from courageous conversations or emotional intelligence, we can convince anybody to invest money and time into anything. But what we say is, the only way you'll get meaningful engagement and change if there's a real problem. So we start with data and evidence. So that's the
Mhm.
data part. So how do you identify your critical point of failure, and then what's your trend over 6 to 12 months? So you've got a firm base in which to operate. Then we
Mhm.
seek evidence or insights from the people that you're seeking to influence. What are they
Mhm.
experiencing, and how can you help them? And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, you go from boiling the ocean and
Mhm.
providing them with 10 million pieces of content to, all right, so you just need this. So you
Mhm.
can provide them with, say, digital resources that speak to specific points of friction that they're
Mhm.
experiencing in the course of their work. You can
Mhm.
provide workshops in which they can discuss those particular areas. You
Mhm.
might provide some e-learning or curate some content from elsewhere. But what we've found, it's much more likely to be rich in context and stuff
Mhm.
that's needed as people transition into and through an organization. any period of adaptation, certainly as we're experiencing now in the world, people are thirsty for knowing how to get the right stuff done. So what we help learning and development to do is to solve those real problems that they have, because you are marrying the needs of the individual with the organization. You do want people to really be prepared during those transitions whenever there's a change in expectation. We also acknowledge as well is that it's not all down to learning and development, and there could be some structural or other issues. So we always keep the feedback loop open. And as far as we run a very much like a digital marketing campaigns approach, in which we're seeking to continually engage with those people, not just to provide content, but open the dialogue to find out to what extent they are performing to the required level in their own minds and what else they need. So we're always learning about what it is that they're trying to do and the friction that they are experiencing. That, in essence, I mean, there's all the bells and whistles you'd expect as far as integrations are concerned, as far as being able to plug in additional content. But what we found is when learning and development seek to both understand the real problems being experienced and commit to contextually relevant solutions, that's the path they will continue to down. And so providing their people with what they need when they need it has been the secret source of not just engagement, but meaningful results now for many a year.
Just now, you also mentioned EMEA, Europe,
Mm,
Middle East, Middle East and Africa. Is
yeah.
that while you were working for Disney?
Disney. Yeah, that was my role in Disney. Yeah.
Your role to cover EMEA. So you worked for fast developing economies like South
Yeah.
Africa, like some other, like Russia. I mean, the BRICS. There are there are two members of the BRICS. The
Mm,
BRICS nations. So what do you just talk about? Can that also happen in fast developing economies? Because what you just said, as I see it, that it perfectly, no problem, no doubt, it should work in the
mm,
developed economies, just such as UK. But how about the
yeah.
fast developing countries?
Well, I'd flip the question around, George. To what extent is generic content and top-down system implementations really benefiting developing countries? I think
Mm-hmm.
I know the answer. So I don't think there's an alternative. And what I'm talking about isn't an alternative, just an alternative way of addressing learning and development needs. These are tried and tested software and product development strategies that have affected digital product development and implementation for many, many years now.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that we've been stuck in learning and development in a mindset of delivery. Like we're postmen, we post your letter through, right? And what happens to that letter afterwards? That's up to you. But
Mm-hmm.
we've delivered our webinar, we've
Mm-hmm.
provided you our content, and you've
Right.
attended our class. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost as if the delivery is
Mm-hmm.
perfectly fine. And what I'm saying is that with rigorous analysis, we find out that what we've been delivering as day programs or now 1 hour virtual sessions
Right.
wasn't actually required. What you've
Mm-hmm.
done is you've literally just
Mm-hmm.
given us a load of information to try to mine, to try to find value from, because you don't understand my role. You don't understand my challenges. You don't understand the expectations on me or how I'm rewarded. Why do so many learning and development programs start off with trying to convince the attendees that this now is their job?
Mm-hmm.
Managers as coaches, your
Mm-hmm.
job is to coach your team.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, is it? Oh, right. Okay. I thought I knew my job, but no, carry on. You can, we try, what we try to do is we try to create a problem to provide our solution to. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like this is the hardest possible way of doing our job. And yet,
Right.
and this is why what we do very, very rarely translates to a digital medium, because once you're not in the room, that you're not getting the agreement of, all right, okay, okay, I can go along with this, go along with your practice and all of this, there's that none of that is actually there. What we've got to do is we've got to put the brakes on the whole, we need you to know this, or we need you to do this, and spend a little bit more time understanding that these people were recruited into these roles. They've been doing these roles. They're rewarded in these roles because they're meeting the expectations in these roles. But what is it that they're not able to do that we are now able to help them to achieve? So it's a different flip. And I think that it's one that learning and development can and should get its head around, but we've got to get out of delivery mode in order to do that.
Right. Right. It absolutely needs top-down design, or at the at the highest level, strategic designing of all these structural framework to do that?
Well, I take needs rigorous analysis. I mean, do you know what, George? I'm not a big fan of top down. I think that a lot of top down is the
Mm-hmm.
oversimplification of complex problems. What
Mm-hmm.
comes top down are competencies, behavioral frameworks, all of
Right.
these things that so much time is spent actually designing, and they make such little impact on the ground. They make such a minimal impact on the ground, perhaps beyond recruitment. And you can, of course, you can design a development framework from it. But again, if it doesn't actually speak to what it is that people are expected and rewarded to do, what
Mm-hmm.
difference does it really make? I think again, I think that we could do a lot better than to implement too much else top down.
Right, absolutely. What I mean is more kind of a strategic level.
Mm,
So so I think that also combines what you just said. Also combines my next question: the data informed the decision making, and what you
mm.
just said also supporting the business, because right now we're in the digital age. You talk about the word digital a couple of times, and then we need to get to do the real job analysis, real needs
Mm.
analysis. So to do the data-informed decision making, I believe is not only business decision making but also learning decision making. Is that right? Or how do you do it? How do you do the real job analysis to find out the gap?
Right. So the needs are likely to come to us in similar ways to they are now. There is
Hmm.
something wrong. People aren't performing. We're not getting results. But instead of translating these into learning needs, we keep them in the context in which they are experienced. So I know
Hmm.
that some people don't like the term performance. I don't mind
Hmm.
what you call it. It is people doing the job to the level required in the way that it's expected. That's all it is. But you will call it a performance because it is the doing of the job rather than the results, which is the outputs, the what people are expected to actually achieve.
Right.
So I'd rather we focused on the performance data rather than the learning data.
Right.
What we've got to remember, George, is how to what extent we twist language. We've never measured learning. We have never measured learning. We have never measured uh, um, anything except what is observable. Learning is a mental process. So, and then we've got to remember as well is that we were called the learning and development function because it was deemed the most appropriate way that we were going to improve performance is have people attend something or complete something where there was
Right.
distance between the solution and the reapplication. It had to be learned. Otherwise,
Hmm.
how was they going to retain enough information? Now, Google and YouTube have totally changed the game. You
Hmm.
don't have to learn. I mean, the learning happens with the doing, as it
Right.
always did, unless it was rote, unless you are learning by repeating. We've got to remember, we're people, we're organisms, we're not computers. This was never the case. So
Hmm.
what we need to do is measure what we actually really can. So so going back to what I said before, the needs will come to us in the same way. These
Hmm.
people aren't doing this. These results aren't happening. This serverless level agreement isn't being met. These two teams aren't delivering the results they were. So what we need to do is rather than take that as a need, which we might have done before and then created a program or content, we need to get proof. Is
Hmm.
that really the case? Right. This is where we go and get data. We ask the questions, what would we see if this were true? And what
Hmm.
would we see if this wasn't true? And go
Hmm.
get it. What I always
Hmm.
say to people who say to me, but what if I can't find the data? I say to them, it's
Hmm.
probably not a problem.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
it. So what you're doing is like, so we go back to before. Why are you doing your induction? We do our induction for consistency. No,
Hmm.
you don't. Right. Let's get past consistency because I think I've written in a post or said on a podcast before, taking your
Right.
shoes off and putting them in the middle of the room and setting fire to them every Monday with new starters is also consistent, but you wouldn't do it. So let's get past consistency. Why are you doing this? So then you get to, well, we want to keep good people. My Lord, you really do want to keep good people. You've got hundreds of thousands of pounds of recruitment fees in this room alone, right? You do want to keep good people. We want to make sure that they keep each other safe. Yes, you do. We want to make sure that they know where to go next. We need them to know that they're ready to perform. Whatever is the real reason, the organizational benefit for having those people together or preparing them at all, you then need to go and look, say, is that really a problem? What would you see if it was a problem? What would you see if it isn't? And then then you should be laser focused on addressing that. Because what I found with the people that I work with, the clients, the prospects, the connections and network who work data driven, they spend much longer in the discovery phase to find out what the real problem is, but they spend months less time on executing a solution that delivers results, because you can be really targeted and you can, with a minimum valuable products, again, digital terminology, you can start affecting the meaningful metrics within days with the people who are expected then to both perform and get results. Whereas if you are translating performance needs into learning needs in order to create learning products, to procure content or develop courses, to schedule and get people to attend, we're talking weeks and months. And you know what, George? A lot of the time, because of that distortion between reality and then the learning need, it doesn't make any difference. So the data-driven decision making is about understanding the performance context, the expectations and results expected, and not the learning data, which is a distortion in itself, because there's no such thing.
So basically, you build a systematic, you use a systematic approach from what it is now and what it is expected, and you find the gap, but you put all of them into the system, and then what their learning activities are all tracked, and then also give feedback along the way. So you build them all into your system.
No. So what it does with the analysis, you recognize that a great deal of it isn't actually around skill and capability, but there might be some sharing of information, some know-how and insights within that, but there are going to be some structural elements within that as well. But you look at things holistically, and some of it's going to be within a digital system, some of it's going to be face-to-face. You could, I'll give you an example that some of it might be digital resources that can be surfaced to anticipate a moment of need, so that people are guided and supported to do more of the right stuff. But we know that that's not the only support that people need. And so there might be some opportunity to bring people together. These days, it may be virtually. There may be some face-to-face element, of course, once restrictions are lifted around the world. There could be opportunities to discuss, whether that be virtually or together, but it's all in service of what it is that you're trying to affect, and not about developing libraries or programs, because that's the skill set or the products that we're used to doing. It really is the front end analysis and the discovery phase. Whilst it may seem exhaustive and you may spend a great deal of time within it, the opportunity to then solve real problems in a fraction of the time is the benefit.
You know, next time, probably you need to do me a demo of your system, or walk me through.
Yeah.
Saw some of the screen grabs that are so cool. Can you do it now?
I don't have a demo system to show you. No.
Okay, next time. Thank you. And so also I looked up, I want to talk about the empowered learner, because I do want to ask you this, because this is one of the subjects that you have been talking about on YouTube also. And that's quite a thought evoking. And so what is empowered learner? What's your definition? What does it do?
So the empowered learner goes back to like this, my history in learning and development. If I was talking in the early 2000s, so I would have been 5 or 6 years into learning and development, and we talked so much around self-directed learning. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had self-directed learners, which back then would have been people going to Netscape and using early versions of the internet, but predominantly it would be Netscape. That's bringing back some memories.
Remember it anymore.
but mostly it would have been forging your own connections, reading your own books,
Oh yeah.
subscribing to publications. All of that stuff is what we would have expected. But of course, the game changed towards the middle to end of the 2010s.
Right.
Everyone was an empowered learner because we had instant access to the world's information
Right.
categorized by Google or other search engines.
Right.
So the empowered learner was a phrase to describe that we had access to so much information, know-how, and insights in our pocket, and not necessarily, this everybody knows this, but just to lay it out, this isn't just stuff from one person's head. This isn't like an instructional designer who's read a book and then read this stuff. We got
Right.
access to real experts on Twitter and other social media, where
Right.
it's not just about finding a magazine article around mindfulness. You can
Mhm.
speak to people who have been transformed their own lives. You got instant access. The whole thing had switched on its head. But at the same time, so I wrote that I think in 2015, that ebook. At the same
Uh-huh.
time, I had a colleague at Disney say to me, when I come to work, I switch off half of my brain because the systems are so unintuitive. So so we have supercomputers in our pockets and dumb
Right.
computers at work. So
Right.
that was my experience. It's a way of saying that you have what you always wanted, learning and development. You have your self-directed learner. Now, what are you going to do with them? Because you can activate them. You could give them what they need when they need it in service of the organization's goals and in anticipation of the unfamiliar situations and challenges they face every day.
Mhm.
But they don't. They give them
Just further
e-learning.
on just further on that topic. So if I come to the workplace and shut down half of all my systems, and then how about in the future? Also, that's also in my list. In the future of the e-learning, do you think will be neural kind of implant on that, like Elon Musk is doing, and something like that in the human brain, and then totally the learning functions and will totally disappear? By the way, just
Mm.
now you mentioned Netscape, that era, and then that revolutionized because the information access is not a problem anymore. Everybody got access to internet,
Yeah.
and at that time, I also hope personally, I also hope all our our employees will go out and search on their own. They get what they want to. Their job requirements needed. I mean, the skills and knowledge and needed, and then they acquire themselves. And then, as I said, well, what do we do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will.
So
I mean,
you
the
say,
training department will disappear.
yeah, exactly. So you'd say that we've lost out to Google because everybody will go to web search or YouTube or or wherever they go instead of our LMS, and they will go anywhere but the LMS. But what learning and development have left on the table that
Right.
no search engine is covering is how to be successful in your organization. Why
Right.
have they left that on the table?
Right.
Why have learning and development decided it's not their job to
Right.
help people to learn to unpack the culture so that it is tangible, so that people can do more of the right stuff when they're facing unfamiliar situations and challenges? Why have we decided that we're going to double up on Google and create educational and academic content which is largely in the public domain? It doesn't make sense. Our job
Mhm.
shouldn't be generic.
Right.
That's not where the value of what we're doing is. And when we do the analysis, we find out that it's not the generic stuff. It's not the
Mhm.
educational elements. It's not what LinkedIn Learning have already got covered that is stopping people from performing. It's
Mhm.
understanding the blockers. It's the politics. Going back to what you said about asked about what's the future of learning and development.
Yeah,
I
learning about.
agree with Nick Shackleton Jones, and I think that it's going to be learning elimination. So when you look and think, why do we need corporate learning in organizations? In
Mhm.
Nick's words, it's because the organization is unusable. It's conducted. I mean, you look at matrix organizations, matrix global organizations, where you've got different departments who are competing for resources. That's unusable. I mean,
Mhm.
like, you've created a system that requires nuanced contextual knowledge in order to
Right.
operate it. And of course, there's an advantage. It means that some people are going to be successful and succeed, and they're going to find innovative ways in order to navigate and I don't want to use the word game the system because it's not about gaming it, but it's about using it to their advantage. And there will be winners and there will be losers within the same organization. I see this now in the UK. Organizations are set up to be entrepreneurial, to compete against in the same organization, different areas competing against each other. Now, if we want to, the future of learning and development could be creating more usable organizations and eliminating learning. How inefficient is it to spend an amount of time being exposed to content and then taking back to the workplace the bits you remember so that you can apply that when an unfamiliar situation or challenge occurs for the first time? It's bananas. When you describe it to somebody the way that traditional learning and development works, you'd think, what a, it's not possible. It's not possible for it to work. But if you were to describe, the world of Google, that doesn't, or that, Google can chase you around the internet, or adverts can chase you around the internet, try to influence you to do some what they want you to do. Imagine your organization chased you around your internal systems because it knew what you were trying to do, but it also knew what you were expected to do, and it anticipated the results that you wished to gain. It would help you to do all of that stuff, but at the point you needed it. Now, I think learning and development in the future will be much, much smarter than now. And you've got to admit that relying on people to register, attend, absorb, recall, all of that, it's so inefficient and largely ineffective that I think that we'll get closer to the point of need. There'll be anticipatory tools. We'll be using data to get closer to to those needs, and using machine learning to more closely anticipate what it is that people need to know when they need to know it. But that won't be the only thing. There will be experiences, and of course, with more manual work, there'll be that needs practical application. There will still be simulations. I'm excited about real simulation of what the actual job will do. But I'm hoping that we'll also see an eradication of generic solutions and an oversimplification of critical elements like the skills gap. The skills gap is very, very real. But if the answer to that is get me a system filled with 10 million pieces of generic content that is easily categorized, George, that's not a profession. That's administration.
It is. So to sum up what you just said, I'm really excited about it too. So I do agree that we all lost our job. All of us learning development professionals lost our jobs to Google and YouTube alike. But our future job is really needs to be more customization, more focused, and to solve real problems in the real organizations in just in time for the right amount of time and for real results. So that's our job. For our learning development professionals, it's kind of a funnel down. In the past, we had a wider range. We can train a lot. Oh gosh, there's so many things that we need to let our employees know and learn and remember and recite even. But right now is more kind of a pinpoint to their job specific, and all their learning activities has to be in alignment with the organizational goals or departmental goals and business goals, not learning goals.
Yeah, that's right. Business goals, but also we've got to recognize that the pace of change as well. So we've got there'll be a period where we're helping people to transition as well. The skills gap is being, we're talking millions of people without basic digital capabilities to perform in their existing roles, let alone to perform in 10 years time, where the pace of change is increasing and the 80% of the workforce are already in the work of 2030 are already in the workforce now. We need to be able to take those people with us, but we're not going to take them with us 12 people at a time on a training course to tell them everything that they need to know by attending the course every 2 years. We're not going to do this via e-learning, where the cost of changing that e-learning or creating and changing that e-learning is prohibitive, as well as time consuming. We're going to have to do this in real time in order to take people with us. And that's where we've got to get smarter and perhaps start with a vision rather than starting with the solution that we've bought and trying to find problems to solve with it.
Right. About learning engagement. I know we're running short on time a little bit, but I just want to speed up a little bit. what are the best ways to keep learners engagement? We talked about it earlier in the technology-enabled learning, e-learning. So everybody's sitting in front of the screen. How do we keep them in there?
So we keep them in there for as little as possible. So the key to engagement
Little as
isn't by
possible.
as little as possible. So what
Okay.
we do is, like, we're in an attention economy. So what we need to do is we need to provide people with what they need when they need it in order to do the things they're trying to do. And we marry
Mm-hmm.
that with the organization, because the expectation doesn't come from within learning and development. If we
Mm-hmm.
understand what it is they're trying to do and what they're not able to do, and give them resources that are going to help them to do that, we've got them. George, that this is the holy grail. If you're not able to do something at work that you're expected to do, not only
Oh,
are other people expecting you to do it, but you're paid to do this, and you won't be paid if you don't do it. If I offered you help that summed up what experts in your organizations already knew in order to get that done, and
right.
that was frictionless, that was on your phone when you needed it, are you going to not engage?
Probably get fired.
No, what we found is, if you help people when they need help with what they're trying to do, rich in the context of what they're trying to do, and we're not asking them to go search or mine through e-learning just in case there's something that might translate. If you can be as specific as is absolutely possible in order to offer them value so they can move on, engagement is the least of your worries. You're then talking about to what extent you can get closer to the point of need to further influence the way the work is done. In learning and development, when it comes top down and it starts generic, we have no chance. I mean, again, it's ludicrous. Why on earth? How on earth are we still here in 2021 looking and thinking, but how do we get people into something they don't want to do? What are we doing? I mean, it really is bananas when there is real opportunity within there, as people transition into organizations and through the organizations into new roles, and as they're expected to perform in unfamiliar situations. That's our opportunity. How do we capitalize on that rather than trying to get them to return again and again and again, where we are asking them to do too much work for too little value?
That's unfortunately that phenomenon has been there for a long,
That's right.
long time. Enough is enough sometimes.
That's
Time
right.
to
And
change.
so you got
Time to
so
change.
take a look at digital marketing, right?
Mhm.
Digital marketing wouldn't be where it is. So we've got a digital marketing function. If we add more, we did some analysis. We got some digital marketing consultant to do some analysis. We know exactly where our leads come from. We know if we put more money in there, we'll get more leads. So what we do is we've got just enough leads to service the current business that we've got until we get funding to build out the sales force, and then we just put more in and we turn up the dial, getting results by the spend. What's happening to learning and development's budget? The more money you put in, still no proof that it's delivering results. The great training robbery that we might be spending $300 billion globally on learning, and it's deemed 10% of that is effective. That wouldn't work in marketing, and I don't know why it's working here now. Our lack of analysis, our lack of digital capability, our unflinching belief that our educational methods are sound, and therefore it's the learner that's wrong. How many people tell you that their learners need to learn how to learn? If our learners need to learn how to learn, then the human race wouldn't have evolved. We'd be extinct. We don't need to learn how to learn. We need different approaches to learning and development in order to guide and support people to do more of the right stuff when they need to. We are failing organizations, rather than learners not knowing how to inappropriately engaging with our products. There needs to be a fundamental rethink of learning and development to address this problem. Learner engagement is only a problem when you're not addressing their needs when they need it. And
Absolutely.
that's the litmus test. If you're solving
Absolutely.
real problems in the time they need it, engagement is the least of your worries.
Learning engagement is not a real problem. The real
No,
problem
it's
is
not.
on the side of the L&D practitioners, because they didn't do the job well. So they're not solving. I mean, the learners are innocent. Learners only learn when the content is going to be applicable it's going to be data driven, I mean, result driven and useful for them, basically.
That's it.
If it's not useful, I'm not going to learn it. So
Mm.
whatever tricks you want to put on me, I won't learn, period. I'm going to go for
Exactly.
something else. But if you do give me some very useful content or practical content, meaningful content, no matter what you do, I don't care, but I will learn
Mm.
it because
That's right.
because all my benefits are depend on it.
I completely agree. Digital marketing has been built around this. You build content that educates your consumers. You build funnels to guide them through to get to help them to do what it is that you want them to do, because you understand enough of their motivations and desires in order
Right.
to influence them. Now, in learning and development, we don't do any of that. We don't believe enough in digital capability, data-driven practices in order to just beg, steal, and borrow from a much more sophisticated function that are successfully influencing people in order to deliver real results for their organization. Now, my goodness, how are we not seeing that this is the same thing?
I have an idea. The best way to solve that is to switch to the job rotation. Those marketing guys, digital marketing guys, can come over for the L&D. L&D, you go and learn how to do digital marketing, and then
I
a
think,
year
yeah,
later you come back, you rotate back.
yeah,
Bingo.
yeah,
Everybody wins.
exactly. Because you won't be creating personas in learning and development. Your HR data tells you everything about them. It tells you their age, where they live, who they are, their maturity within their role, their tenure in the organization. You've got everything there. I mean, like our AI and machine learning should be figuring out how we turn that rich data
Right.
into a way of getting the right stuff to people, like to people to influence the way they work. It's
Right.
all there. It really is all there. But the reason we've not is because we've underappreciated, undervalued, and misinterpreted digital for too long.
So I do agree. All the data are there, especially to everybody. I
Mm.
mean, for the learning practitioners in China. I mean, the data, even though we're fast developing countries, where are so many, the ERPs and LMSs and so many systems. Earlier you said, I absolutely agree. No one on earth, I mean, no one want another system,
No.
because this is another burden of work. So, so all the data are there. First of all, we need to have the motivation to look. And
Mhm.
secondly, we know where to look. And thirdly, we know what to look. Those are
Yeah,
very, very important things.
they
So
are.
as learning development, learning L&D practitioners, we need really think in the shoes of the business owners.
That's right. Yeah, we really should. It goes back to what I said earlier. Stop
Yeah.
accepting learning needs or translating performance needs into learning needs. And those are simply assumptions. And without data, they are likely to be wrong assumptions. So just spend a little bit of time on your
I
hypothesis.
I changed in my classes. I changed training TNA, training needs analysis, to BGA, business gap analysis, because training
Yeah.
needs analysis sounds a little bit more subjective, and
Mm.
more individualized and from the individual. And I want to do a golf course, maybe, but it's
Yeah.
not pertained to your job. Forget about it. What you need to do is on your job, your job responsibility, your tasks required you to do. So
Mm.
it's more kind of you have to align your personal L&D needs to with the organizational ones.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I changed
Agreed.
that to business gap analysis, and the business gap analysis is more objective.
Yeah.
It's more data driven. It's not more data. It is data driven. The data is there.
Mm.
It's there. The gap is there. Go and find something, fill it up, and solve
Mm.
it. And one of the ways is learning and development. Maybe 10%.
Mm.
Maybe. What's your count? Am I counting it right? Or 10% can solve? I mean, learning development basically can solve 10% of the company's problems.
Oh, yeah, look, maybe. I think that it goes back to, without analysis, we're just hypothesizing. But
Right.
then we shouldn't be scared that by opening up a conversation around a gap analysis that we might only be able to solve 10%. I mean, we should act like partners. If we're having the
Oh,
right conversations with our
oh, yeah.
stakeholders, and it's determined then that there's a structural or a process issue as well as some capability, they're not idiots. They'll tell us. they'll go, that's nothing to do with you.
Oh, they're not.
They'll take a look and say, this has been really useful to me because I now know they just need to know the process. Or what they'll do is they'll say, I've got 2 incompatible teams here, or I've got 2 incompatible characters. They'll recognize that, but they're not going to look at you and say, are you going to design me a new process map?
Right.
No, no, they're not. They're not going to say that. But we shouldn't be scared to be having business conversations with people,
Yeah.
rather than pithy learning conversations.
Exactly. Learning. That's why I always say we need a transformation. L&D practitioners need a transformation
Mm,
from you need to come out of your own silo and come out and really go up to the 30,000 meters high.
yeah.
But to that altitude, is to
Mm,
in order to have the view. When we conduct gap analysis, is 100%.
mm,
And when
yeah.
you
Agreed.
really come to solve the problem, maybe you can have a piece of that big cake. But that's our job. That's why we're there.
Mm. That's why I'm a big advocate of performance consulting. You have conversations
Exactly.
around what is actually occurring without
Yeah.
any distortion or translation into the field of play that you wish to operate, which is your learning and training products, because that's not real world. That's why so little impact is made once that
I've
distortion or translation has occurred.
Right. Those the performance improvement stuff will
Mm,
kick in to solve it. That's their
yeah.
job. So anyway, I want to shift the gear a little bit on the L&D in UK.
Mm,
You resided in UK. So
mhm,
what's the difference? Well, in Chinese we say UK and well in the world,
mm.
US and UK are the same family. So is the learning L&D functions in the UK different from that in the US?
Yeah, I think so. I think the scale is a big problem, and
Oh yeah.
the way that I've experienced it, that in the UK, many learning and development functions are integrated into the business itself because they're small, and the locality is close by. So you have, in many organizations, you'll have a director or a head of learning and development, and then you'll have learning and development business partners who actually work closely with the business leads themselves. That's why so much of it then is performance focused. Now in the
Mm,
US, and again, this is my experience, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but because of the scale, you generally have a group head office, and then you have the operations dispersed across the US. And in that regard, the learning and development functions have very little interaction with the business leads. And so that's why it seems to me that so many universities and academies are built in the US, which is your faculty that you can send people to in order to be developed. And of course,
mm,
because it's not actually close to the work, it can't be performance focused. It's
mm,
much more academic or education focused. And in the same way as Ivy League and educational facilities, universities generally are, there is a lot of status attached to the programs and
mm,
the certifications that you may gain. But there is only so much you can gain by leaving the work context,
right.
having an educational experience, and then going back to work. Unless there's a simulation, it's going to be
Right.
different. Now, at Disney, I experienced that as I'd receive training manuals and I'd
Mhm,
look, I think they were unusable. They didn't speak at all to jobs. They didn't
mhm,
speak to any levels of people that I could deal with. These were just nice to haves. And so the battles that I'd have, especially when I reached director level, when I was that middle layer between the global design teams and then the local country implementation teams, I'd take a look and I'd say, but you just want this to be delivered. You're not expecting any results. You can't possibly be expecting any results from this. And I'd never get challenged back. Of course I couldn't expect. Of course you couldn't expect results. So I think there's a big disconnect, that I think that the expectations on learning and development are different, and perhaps those learning metrics in inverted commas are more important, because if you can't demonstrate business value, then you must reframe the value of learning and development as a benefit. So these are the hours and days spent training. This is the satisfaction score. Here's the NPS. So our people like it and they'd recommend it. Therefore,
right.
it must be good. But of course, in we're experiencing crunch times, and I spoke about it before about the skills gap, for which I've done a lot of research in the UK, and there are 4 elements to the skills gap in the UK, as published at the end of 2019. There's basic digital skills. There's
Okay.
leadership and management, for which there's a deficit. There's STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and maths. And number
Right.
4, George, there are only
Uh-huh.
4. There are only 4 things in the skills gap. The 4th one is teaching and training.
Oh my God. Really?
Our teachers and trainers are
Uh-huh.
not equipped in order to develop the skills that are required for the future. So this lands on learning and development's lap. So anyone who tells me that learning and
Uh-huh.
development doesn't need to change, that it all happens face to face, that instructional design is this and that, and that we need to teach our learners to learn, we've got cold, hard data to say we are the problem.
Right.
So
Wow.
we do need to wake up.
Wow. Wow. Are there any instructional design programs in the UK?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of instructional design, if I'm completely honest.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of instructional design based around we need you to know this, and I think that the last 15 years of internet usage have shown us that we
Mhm.
need you to know this, as you know, as very little hooks to hang its content on, that we should be user centric, and we
Mm.
should be design well, we should have a completely different digital approach, which is data driven and agile, built around solving the real problems of the people that we're supporting and guiding.
Mhm.
But instructional design as a premise, I think, um, uh, has been the cause of many problems and dysfunction in learning and development for many years.
Mhm. 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 That's another subject that I really want to dig into, deep dive
Mm.
a little bit when we have time next time. But
Next
are
time,
there
yeah.
any, what are the most influential professional organizations in the UK? Are there any of them, like in the United States, they have ATDs and ISPIs?
Yeah, so the CIPD is probably the most important here.
I mean, in the
The chart,
UK.
yeah, in the UK, the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, and they have a learning and development
Okay.
wing. A lot of learning and development jobs will ask for CIPD level qualifications or above. So
Hmm.
they're kind of the benchmark. And Andy Lancaster at the CIPD, who is the head of learning, he's very much trying to change the both the perception and the approaches of learning and development. And I'm very fortunate to be a guest tutor on one of their programs on digital, for which as we speak today, George, I'm working with them this evening to do that, and I have a regular slot on there. And the whole thing that I try to share is that we should all expect more from digital and expect more of ourselves in order to capitalize on the huge opportunity which is
Right.
digital,
Right.
which is far beyond systems and platforms, as
Oh, yeah.
as we could possibly imagine. But the CIPD seem to be grasping that, and I'd say that they are the most important professional body as far as learning is concerned.
That's perfectly moving to our next, build into our next question. How do you predict this pandemic will impact our field? You said it's far more beyond digital.
Yeah, so I'd say that what I've seen is that in many organizations it's accelerated change, that we can't get together anymore. So how do you affect real change? And I suppose what we have within there is the perfect storm, that not only are you not able to deliver face-to-face training that we over relied on, but we need our organizations to both survive and then thrive in this new world. So learning and development interventions have to work. So it's perfect. It's perfectly aligned for us. Um, there's a good side and a bad side to that. I'd say that the good side is that many people have pivoted and sought to address the most pressing concerns of their organization: the shift to almost completely remote working,
Right.
the need to support remote managers within that. Of course, there's so much reliance on presenteeism, certainly in the UK. That so if I can't see my people are working, how do I know they're working? There's been a big push on well-being because there's greater pressure on people. There's a restriction on social interaction, and a burden on parents to homeschool as well. So there are real challenges, and learning and development have helped to pivot to address those rather than perhaps address more peripheral, if not imaginary problems that may have been experienced before. But there is a downside, as I said, George, as many people simply seek to put face-to-face training into e-learning or share the slides on a platform that's not digital. That is, that's like comparing a PowerPoint slideshow to making a TV show. Like it's just not. The fact that they're on screens is where the comparison starts and ends. And digital starts with data and understanding and an analysis that understands the real problem and then works with and for the client in order to address that efficiently. Whereas content dumping requires next to no interaction with the individual before it's actually delivered at them. So we've got different schools of thought, but it goes back to what I said with the skills gap, George. The biggest opportunity that we have to affect real change and remain relevant is to upskill ourselves on what digital actually means, rather than thinking that content on computers is going to cut it in 2021.
Absolutely. Yeah. Content is more important than formality.
Yes.
The format. Yeah. If I had a chance to start all over again, I know this is kind of a midlife achievement, but what would you have done differently?
I think that I wouldn't have spent the first 7 years trying to be the best trainer I could be. That I would have spent much. I would have explored then, if I had a time machine, performance consultancy right back then. Then I wouldn't have been so anxious about having those conversations with leaders, because when I was leading functions at Disney, senior people weren't asking for training courses. They were asking for real change. And of course, I wasn't equipped because I'd polished up my training skills, which didn't work when it really mattered. So I think investing in the right conversations and not being scared that it wouldn't be a training need, I think is what I would have done differently.
Oh, they're crying for it. They're crying for it. I mean, just craving for, give me something to solve my real problems at work, and just the right amount of, at the right time for the right amount, and just the right content, the right skills, and the right tools, and for the right people at the right time for the right results. All that, that right.
All that great stuff.
Yeah. So as a closing statement, do you have any advice to the younger practitioners in China or other developing countries as a whole?
Yeah, I'd say don't misinterpret our profession as being about learning. It's not about learning. Learning is one tool in the kit bag. We are actually about performance and capability, and we service our organizations within that. That I think will lead us on the right path. If I can add one more part to that, George, it would be believe in digital, because we can make a much bigger difference if we believe in digital rather than believing that what we need to do has to be face to face. We can't change organizations 12 people at a time. We can't change organizations 1 hour at a time with 50,000 people on a webinar. We can't do it manually. We have to use data. We need to use the right amount of analysis. We can use automation. We can use AI, but it all starts with solving the real problem and not looking for problems to solve with a said solution.
You bet. And around the last question, you said, if I can travel back in time, well, you can, because you can loop.
I can loop back in time with Will Smith.
That's a really good name. Anyway, thank you so much, David. Thank you so much for sharing so much information for all of us. And it's so real and modern and up to date and really high tech stuff. So really look forward to learning more from you and hearing more from you in the future, especially when we have a time. Give us a demo sometimes.
Yeah, lovely. Will do. Thanks, George. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and stay safe.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye. That's my interview with David James. How do you feel? I also learned, I indeed, again, learned a lot. And his presentation style, especially what he taught us and what he shared with us are very, very important, especially in this age of online learning, caused especially accelerated by the spread of the pandemic. So online learning is a challenge, but it is also going to be an accelerator for all of us. Thank you, David. Thank you for your years of practice and thank you for your sharing. Your advice are very valuable and we expect to learn more from you. Next week, we are going to have the very honor to have another very well-known guru online to share with us her thoughts and her achievements. Her name is Dr. Patty Shank. Patty has been in this field for several decades and many years. Next week, we're going to ask her a lot of questions around learning science, especially how do we manage cognitive load? How do we write learning objectives, better learning objectives, and how do we conduct training assessment, etc., etc. So until next week, please stay tuned, stay safe. Thank you, and good night.